Hi everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to look up a clinical trial online. I'm going to use a website called clinicaltrials.gov, which is based out of the NIH here in the US, but it is very comprehensive and typically tends to include websites from around the world. And it's a very good resource and very important for you to know if you're living with a chronic disease. The website can be a little bit tricky to use, so I'm going to show you how to do it in a stepwise fashion. So you first want to go to clinicaltrials.gov. You just type that in the search bar and it should take you to this website over here. You really want to make sure you're in the right place and that you see the NIH logo in the top left-hand corner. This is a search bar over here, and you would start off by typing in the condition and disease of interest. You really want to be specific in this part. You don't want to be broad and say something like brain cancer, but rather be more specific in the exact diagnosis that you've been given. So let's assume it's IDH mutant glioma, and you can again add more terms depending on what exactly you're looking for, or specific treatments or interventions that you're looking for. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to leave this part blank. It's always a good idea to add a location because it allows you to identify studies that you can actually probably easily participate in, as opposed to having to travel to participate. And this is an important part over here. So study status, you really want to be choosing the second option, so recruiting and not yet recruiting studies, because all studies includes options that have already been completed, so there's little benefit in looking at those trials. You can be a lot more specific, so under more filters, there is a lot more information in terms of selecting the exact category, sex, phase of the clinical trial. And essentially, we are going to have another video that talks about clinical trials. We're actually going to be having a webinar in a few weeks where you can learn about what all these terms mean. Essentially, a phase of a clinical trial kind of tells you a little bit more information about what type of trial it is. Phase 1 trials essentially are more safety. They are checking, is an intervention safe? Phase 2 is more, does it work? Phase 3 is it better than what we have right now, better than standard of care? And phase 4 is more long-term safety. And so interventional studies essentially are studies where they're actually offering a medication or some kind of intervention. Observational is more, they'll follow you long term and gather information from you to learn more about the disease. I'm going to skip through all of this other stuff because it's not really going to be relevant unless you're a researcher, where you can essentially specify some additional information that would be helpful for you. But you would just go ahead and click search, and this is what you're going to be seeing. So let's look at this study over here. Essentially, it's looking at a certain type of immunotherapy in the treatment of IDH mutant glioma. This number over here is going to be very important. Essentially what it is, it's an identifier for exactly what clinical trial this is. It's kind of like a social security number, so to speak, where it's a specific number that corresponds to a certain trial. So instead of typing out the name of the trial, it's probably easier for your physician to type this in. It'll actually automatically pull up the information about this particular trial. So I would actually document these numbers when you're actually bringing these trials up with your doctor to learn more about them. So let's go ahead and click on this. Over here, we see that this trial is recruiting. That's the NCT number again. It has a lot of information actually, information about the sponsor and things like that. It can be a bit overwhelming, but just to focus on the things that are actually important on this page, probably more important for you as a patient or a caregiver, is this is a summary of what the study actually offers. This goes into a little bit more detail. It can be a bit heavy with the medical jargon, but don't hesitate to always take down, like if it even seems interesting or seems something that you would consider participating in, do document this, take a note of the NCT number, and do bring it up with your physician, and they can always decode this medical jargon for you. Essentially, you would go down. This is an important part where it has contact and location. So if you're interested or want to learn more about this clinical trial, you would essentially email whatever information is given over here. They also have phone numbers if that's easier for you. And over here, this is a large trial. It has 45 locations, and it has other locations where they're also running the study. So let's just skip through all of this. So participation criteria. This is important to know. And over here, eligibility criteria. So essentially, this would be inclusion criteria, where essentially it details characteristics that you must have. So like, let's say a specific age or whatever previous treatment in order to actually be included in the trial. And as you go down below exclusion and inclusion criteria, you see exclusion criteria, which which essentially lists a series of things that might actually disqualify you from the study. I wouldn't get discouraged by this if you don't match perfectly. It's just a starting point for a conversation. If the trial is something that's interesting to you, just do bring it up, like I said, to your physician. As you go down, it gives you a little bit more information about how the trial is actually structured, with the medication that is going to be offered, and in terms of how they're going to be allocating patients over the course of the study. So this is something that, again, if it's too much of a medical jargon to read, you just bring it up to your physician and they can explain this to you in a much simpler way. So that's about it, actually. So that brings us to the end of this. If there are any questions, feel free to type it in the comment section, and I'll be happy to answer this for you. All right, take care.